Hello and welcome to Fall Through, your source for deep conversations about technology, software, and computing. That's not usually how I start. Anyway, I'm your host, Kris Brando, also known as Scriptable, and on today's episode, we have me, Dylan, and Steve. Little host panel today, and we're going to be talking about AI, one of our regular topics now, but specifically we're going to be talking about Gastown and things related to Gastown. As always, we have supporter-only content. If you're not a supporter, you should sign up at fallthrough.fm/subscribe. And if you're not following us on social media, please give us a follow there. And if you're watching on YouTube, hit that like button and smash that subscribe button. With that, let's get into the show. Hello, viewer/listener. Welcome to another episode. We have Dylan, who's back again. I feel like, Dylan, you had been gone for a while. Now you've returned to grace us with your presence. How are you doing today?
Good. Dealing with this bipolar weather down here in the south. It was in the 30s Monday, in the 70s today, and we're expecting hard freeze by the weekend.
Okay, it's cold here. This week has been like in the teens, and now it's in the 30s. But that swing, that would kill me. From 70 to 30 to freeze? No.
That's what we do here.
Isn't this house is supposed to be always warm, I thought, or relatively warm?
That's further south, like down in the tropics, Caribbean.
Yeah.
It's always warm there.
How can it be called global warming if it's 30 degrees in Texas? Tell me that.
Oh, no. And that's climate change denier is Steve. Steve, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. I like when it's warm down here, and it's not. And so I'm a little sad, but that's fine. But obviously climate change is real, just to be clear. Although have fun clipping that one out of context. It'll be great. But yeah, I'm doing good. I'm turning 40 in a couple days, so I'm having lots of feelings about lots of things, but it's fine.
Yeah. I think it was on Blue Sky, reposted a thing that was just like talking about how like Node.js and other technology and like other older technologies.
Yes.
Oh yeah, Node.js and Nginx and other older technologies, and you're like, oh my god.
Yeah. As a friend of mine actually was doing a talk at a meetup, and that was on one of their slides. And so, it's fine. They're not wrong. It's just like, oh no.
Like the dinosaurs of the industry.
Yeah.
I mean, Dylan, you're actually a dinosaur of the industry. You're like programming in the 90s and doing .NET and, well, I guess .NET didn't exist, but like.
I was still in school in the 90s. I started getting paid to write software in 98.
Okay. That's still last millennium, so.
I sold a basic program to one of my other junior high friends in, when would that have been? That would have been similar time. So it would have been like 98, 97 or something. So if that counts as getting paid to write software, it was once and it was like $2. But I technically was paid to write software in the 90s too, I think.
I guess it technically counts, but you were also in middle school, so like I don't know.
Yeah, I was finishing college and a professional.
Yeah, I guess we're all at various stages of old on this podcast. So
spent 18 months updating COBOL programs to expand 6-digit dates to 8-digit dates to include the century.
Yeah. You know, those COBOL skills these days, they will get you some good work.
Y2K was the Gen X Armageddon.
Yeah. Millennial Armageddon was, there were multiple, so let's. The financial crisis, COVID, 9/11. There were a lot of things that happened to us. People are like, why are you all like this? It's like a combination of the trauma we endured growing up and that water from the hose that we all drank. So, that hose water was good. Thirsty, you just take a sip from it, run around outside.
Down here we have actual nice artesian well water table. So drinking out of the hose usually tastes better than drinking from the faucet.
Why is the hose water different from your faucet water?
Well, it's the equivalent of drinking from a spring. Like we have an actual artesian well that we can tap directly into, and we don't have to get filtered in chemical municipal water.
Wait, so your hoses are, this is so off topic, but your hoses are connected to a well, but your faucets are connected to the city water supply?
Well, that was very hand wavy. No, obviously.
Oh,
not.
okay.
But
Okay.
if you have a well, you get good artesian, fresh well water compared to if you're on municipal water, you get chemically treated, filtered crap water.
I mean, the chemicals are there to like keep you alive, so it's not like they're
It's
terrible.
fine.
All right, I got a joke for you.
Okay.
Where does a mansplainer get his water? From a well, actually.
And with that, let's talk about Gastown.
Womp womp.
Okay, Steve, do you want to take a whack at describing for our viewers or listeners what Gastown is?
Gastown is an agent orchestration framework. Done. Podcast over. Easy. That's like one way of talking about this. I like to think about it as the like, what is Gastown in a very like dispassionate sense, and then what is Gastown in the like, I am doing too many drugs sense, because I think that both sides of this coin matter basically. And so the dispassionate Gastown description is like, in the same way that like Kubernetes is a tool to manage computational resources and like put them together in interesting ways to like accomplish larger tasks. Or say your operating system scheduler is like scheduling threads of execution and managing processes and doing that kind of stuff. Gastown is like, what if your Kubernetes pods were Claude instances? Or what if your operating system processes were Claude instances? And like, how do you make them work together and coherently on a task to accomplish a goal or whatever? And so like a sort of medium, I went to grad school and read books by old Frenchmen version of this is like, Claude is like naturally, or not Claude, Gastown is sort of like taking the natural extension of like, if an AI coding assistant is like a software developer, well, where are the AI software managers? Where are the AI software like factory floor managers? And like, how are we taking the like metaphors of the Industrial Revolution and, putting them into a software development life cycle, and then making AI do all of those parts instead of just the like line work part of those things. I did too many drugs in college and did not actually read the books by the old French dudes version of this. Is like, Gastown is like an experiment to sort of break out of our traditional understanding of what software development should be and try to reinvent it from first principles by burning 1 billion Claude tokens on the idea and letting Claude like be a co-author in the idea of how all of these things should work together.
Okay. Yeah. So that the burning 1 billion Claude tokens thing is
The hot take is it's the most effective means yet of burning money.
I mean,
if you spin up 20 to 50 simultaneous Claude instances and let them consume as many tokens as they care to all day long, every day,
you will hit your session limits and then have to have a second account.
Second? That's amateur hour.
Oh God, how many accounts do people use when they're Claude coding it?
I think in Yegi's initial post, he said he was up to 4. I've seen claims of much higher. I don't know how real that is, but
like 20,
like spending $5,000 a month on max subscriptions, like kind of.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
That.
I don't know how much of that is, real and how much of that is people posting on the internet. But anyway, like, I think that like you gotta All right, this is the like I woke up too early and now I'm like I've already referenced too many old books about things, but like the amount of money does not actually really matter here. It's like about the structure, and this is why I reached for the factory metaphor earlier, is because and there's an older post of mine that like resurfaced recently where I made a bunch of people mad on the internet, which a couple months ago I said, have you ever considered that your product manager is vibe coding you? Which is like, I'm like trying to be provocative, but also make a very real point, which is that like there have always been non-software people helping to evaluate if software does what it's supposed to do correctly. And there's various levels of abstraction to that. And like one of our sort of professional beefs with a lot of management is that they're bad at doing this job by our opinions. But like the point is that like developing software is not just about the people typing the code in. It's also about a whole bunch of other people in an organization that make sure that that organization is working towards a particular goal. And so like for a like capitalist, if you imagine like 1800s steel mill guy munching on a cigar, kind of like, cartoon image of that thing, like they would see a company as a box that you like funnel money in, and like more money comes out the other side, right? Like that's like fundamentally like the goal of capitalism is to build a machine that makes more money than you put into it, and then you shovel as much money as possible into it to get as much money as possible out on the other side. And so like while Gastown is an effective way of burning Claude tokens, like that doesn't actually necessarily matter on a certain level, as long as whatever comes out the other end is like worth more than the money that you're funneling the tokens into. Now, I think that's like a very practical, with Gastown specifically, I think that is a very questionable, like, is that true? I don't know, and probably not. But like, that's because this is an experiment. But like, that's just like what this is like reaching for, because that's ultimately like when people talk about AI wrecking the economy or like taking all of our jobs or like ushering in global communism or like whatever the way people want to think about this, that's like because of the fact of like, if you could make a machine that you funnel Claude tokens in and more money comes out than you spent on the Claude tokens, you've made an infinite money glitch, as the kids say, which is I think just a way of like describing capitalism.
Yeah.
So anyway,
I feel like that also describes like ads on the internet is like an infinite money glitch. So it's not like we haven't had this before.
Totally. Like profit means you have found an infinite money glitch. If you have a profitable enterprise, that's like what you're doing. And so like that is the idea applied here. And so, yeah, like it may, there's lots of follow-on questions. Like, is that a good thing? I don't know. But I guess just I mean is the way that people are reacting to this in a way that like, this is insane and doesn't make any sense, makes me feel a little insane, because I feel like it's very boring and anodyne. Actually, it's like not conceptually that new, really, basically. Like it is just reproducing the existing like software company with a pile of Claudes. And like, yeah, the names are a little bit silly, but like, I don't know, man. Have you ever like had a conversation about technology in front of somebody who's not a technologist? Like they find all of our names silly in the first place. Like you don't really get to be like, well, you sling polecats work via, a hook, and then be like, yeah, and I deployed my Kubernetes pods to, the cloud yesterday. And like a person who's not involved in technology would think both of the sentences are equally gibberish. So like, I don't know. This is probably my postmodernism stuff coming through a little bit, but like, yeah. So anyway, that's like, I think the weird duality of Gastown is that it's like simultaneously very boring and straightforward and obvious, and I think was like going to happen no matter what. And also like a fever dream of maybe a bad idea of like a thing that's not actually going to happen. And so, or at least like I feel like Gastown is one of those classic, this first idea failed because we like did it wrong, but the learnings that you get out of that experience leads to something that does actually work.
Yeah.
So,
and Jackie is kind of calling that out in what he's written so far. He's like, hey, don't use this. This is absolutely something I should out in 2 weeks. And who knows if it's actually going to work. And don't yell at me if your Claude bill is $50,000.
Yeah. When I first read it, I was like, oh, this is like not a terrible idea. it's insane to do this with Claude Code instances, but I understand why he did it. I'm just like, if you just could use like the API. I mean, I talked to you about this, Steve, where it's just like, I think what this has exposed is that there's kind of this missing middle layer between APIs and agents, where it's like, I don't want the interactive loop of an agent, but I don't want the raw low levelness of an API. I want something that sits between them, like a non-interactive agent, basically, and like a framework for orchestrating those and making them work, which is actually like work I'm trying to do for local research stuff, because I'm just like, I don't really want to have to, well, I don't like how Claude spits out research reports, and I'm just like, I just want to research agents that I can just like throw questions at, and it goes on the internet and finds me sources and stuff like that. And I'm like, oh, I'm trying to build like Gastown, but not with like agents. I'm trying to build it with like something much more sane. That's not just like, oh yeah, I have to have this other process that yells at these other processes to make them work because they're expecting user input after some point in time, and all of the other stuff, like the piles of stuff you have to do to make Claude Code work in this way. But the idea itself, I wasn't like, oh, this is awful. I was like, oh no, this feels like a pedestrian evolution of what we already have. So people freaking out about it I'm like, why are you? I get why people are freaking out about it. We as an industry love to get set in a mindset of like, what we have currently is like the best thing ever, and any changes from it mean it's like everything is absolutely awful. And it's funny because we've like always been this way. Like I wrote a blog post for Changelog a few years ago about waterfall not being what people think it is. And in the papers that describe waterfall, there's also these complaints of like, other engineers being like, why do all the software engineers think they're so special? Why do they not like behave like everybody else behaves? Like what is wrong with these people, basically? And that was in like the 70s and 80s. And it's like, oh yeah, no, we've always been this way, where we just think we're the center of the universe and anything that affects us in a negative way is bad. But us affecting other people in a negative way is just great and good. And anytime that like the way our status quo works is challenged, we're like, the sky is falling, the world is collapsing, it's the end. There's going to be no more of us. And inevitably there's always like way more of us after than there were before.
In Silicon Valley, they call that disruption, Kris. We're disrupting.
Yeah. The way we hijack words though, like I got on a little mini rant about the word innovation that we keep spewing about. I'm like, if we're so innovative, why has our hardware improved like 100 million times over, and like our software has gotten arguably worse? Like, how do you do that if you're I guess that is a type of innovation. I don't know if anybody's done it in human history, but like,
also, I think it's gotten actually better. Like, you can't. I want to wrap around. This is the millennial thing. I want to wrap around into sarcasm too quickly. I'm like, you could have never posted on Twitter on an original Mac Plus. So obviously, oh wait, that is worse. Actually, never mind. I'm undermining my own argument. But yeah, like I do think there's a nostalgic view of the way software used to be, and a lot of software is legitimately actually better, like than it used to be.
I shouldn't say it's all worse. I should clarify that like it's probably like 100 times better. Maybe argue 1,000. Yeah. But like when the hardware improved 100 million times over, your improvement of 1,000 times looks kind of paltry in like comparison. It's like, wait, why didn't you keep pace with the hardware?
Having both professionally written COBOL and managed Oracle database clusters in the 90s, I can say it's better today.
Yes. Okay, I'll take back the it's worse. It is better. It's just not better enough, which I feel like also equates to worse, but not in the same way that people think about it. So, but like we're the industry of like innovation, and I'm like, but we still have C as the bed of everything, and like Unix ideas, and like, oh god, we should probably do an episode about this. But like the idea that we're still using the von Neumann architecture, and I was like, no, we're not. Like this is not that thing. Anyway, this is off topic. Well,
we're pretending to.
I guess it is sort of related because it is part of that whole like we need to change the way that we do things, and I think everybody knows that we need to change the way we do things, but everybody is very resistant to actually changing because that change looks scary at first.
Yeah. For sure. And also, like, I think we already understand that the industry is cyclical. And so a fun thing about that is that it means that you can go back to the previous cycle and predict what is hot in the future. Like, I made a joke 10 years ago, 15 years ago, that like you could become a Ruby thought leader by taking Java posts from 2004 and translating the syntax to Ruby and reposting them, because we were like rediscovering the same things that like the Java people were talking about 10 years before that, but just like reframed in a slightly different way. And so I might describe these things as dialectical instead of cyclical necessarily, but like I think that this, for me, this year is going to be challenging a lot of assumptions that I have about the way that I previously worked, because the times have changed, and sometimes the way that we decided how things worked previously, we moved to the way that things worked currently because we saw a trade-off, and we looked at the world and said, okay, the trade-off actually makes sense to be picking in this direction. But in a slightly different world, we may have like preferred to do the old thing. Like the reason that we arrived at that way of doing things was because we had looked at the world before that and decided that moving that direction was the correct one. And so I think there's a lot of like sort of sacred cows that are worth revisiting, because I think the world has changed enough that it's possible that the decisions that we made that led us to that point are like no longer relevant in the way that they used to be. And we'll see how that goes. That doesn't mean I think everything is different now, but I definitely think there's like some things that I'm trying to like reevaluate. Like, am I just doing this for cargo cult reasons, or am I doing this because this is actually what's most effective?
It does in a way feel like we've kind of wrapped it around to where we were in like maybe like the 70s and 80s, where it's like, oh, we're getting a whole bunch of new stuff. There's a bunch of people that have been doing this for a while. Like, it feels like we're getting not just like compilers, but also like, you know, digital audio workstations and transitioning from analog studios to digital studios, and film and video are like trying to digitize. Like it feels like we're going through a digital revolution, but instead it's like this, I don't know, like an efficiency resolution. I don't really know what to call it, but it's like AI has represented like a big jump forward very quickly, and it has polarized people in a way that I think people were polarized when, you know, compilers first came around, or I guess to some degree when assemblers first came around. But also when these like other like newer digital mediums started cropping up and popping up that also polarized many industries, and there were people on both sides arguing for why things should be, we should push forward with it and why we should like hold back and just keep using the old thing. And I think a lot of people were like, everything's going to be different. And I think there were a lot of people that were like, everything's going to collapse and it's going to be terrible. And that hasn't happened, I think, in any of these cycles yet. So
what do you mean, Kris? You mean we're not actually going to burn down the world and start over?
I mean,
I've been told reliably on the internet that that's going to happen. I mean,
that's happening, but not because of AI. It's happening because of other things going on. But like,
speaking of Gastown, we'll be living in Mad Max world.
Hello, viewer/listener. Welcome to the supporter preview segment. In this segment, we're going to give you roughly 30-second previews of this episode's supporter-only content. If any of these clips or segments pique your interest, you should switch over to the extended feed if you're a supporter. And if you're not a supporter, you can head on over to fallthrough.fm/subscribe, where you can sign up to get access to the extended episode feed. With that, let's just get into the first clip. I think I saw something this morning of Kelsey Hightower got one of those emails for his no code GitHub project. Yeah, it's like, this is this is not even okay. Like, ways to show this is obviously a rug pull is like you're saying we're going to support open source maintainers for a project that has no maintenance because there's no code, because
literally has nothing in it.
It's literally telling you should just not write code. Yeah.
The ultimate in vaporware. I've had those debates here where there's a gated subdivision with 600 houses. If every one of them traded in their 2 combustion cars for Teslas, the transformers would explode because the infrastructure is not prepared to handle the load to charge all of those cars all the time.
Yeah.
And that's just the reality of it. Like, everyone couldn't switch to an electric car tomorrow. The electric grid would fall over.
I mean, they could, but like, we'd have to change a lot of things about how stuff works if we wanted that to actually work.
22 accounts, so that's $4,400 a month on Claude. It actually, like, he got banned by Anthropic's fraud detection because they thought that he was defrauding himself because he was trying to buy too many Claude Code accounts.
Oh my God.
No, really, it's me.
Yeah.
That is, I feel like that's when you just spin up a company and then like a little LLC or something, and then just be like, it's for all my employees. I have 30 employees, so.
The deal is basically this. Like, I got a big giant TV over there. It was not $0, but not $1 bajillion. But like 15 years ago, it would have been 100 times more expensive, or maybe you couldn't have even bought it then. And so like I could spend $50 on a television if I wanted to, and it would be better than most of the TVs that I've owned in my life. But I'm like willing to spend a little bit more money for a little power. But if you look at like the equivalent models over time, like what has happened is all of the costs have gone down and all of the prices have dropped. I think part of the reason why they like don't let you use your subscription outside of Claude Code is because I think Claude Code encourages usage patterns that rely on caching more heavily than other uses. And so therefore it is literally cheaper for them to serve a request from Claude Code than it is from a random arbitrary API user. And so it's not that it's inherently subsidized when, like I say, I spent $1,400 of API tokens in my first week with like Claude Code subscription. Like, I think that that's possibly a naive way of looking at it.
Yeah, I feel like that would have a suppression, an inherent suppression factor, because then instead of thinking, am I making progress and making this thing do what it should do and creating a good product to give to my users, you start thinking, like you said, Steve, is it worth the $18 it's going to cost me to finish this afternoon?
Yeah. This is also one of the reasons why I decided to, like, you know, spend a few grand and just get like two 3090 Ti's and NVLink them together.
What I will say is that I was a very big proponent of beads at first, but I actually have become increasingly negative on it because I think that Steve has been vibing too hard and not really like paying attention to quality or taste when it comes to developing the tool. And it has become increasingly complicated and increasingly a little broken around the edges. So I've actually been working on my own version of it instead. I've been working on a thing that's like more than beads, but less than Gastown lately. And it's called Docket. It's on my GitHub. And basically it's what if beads, but a slightly different design. But also there was a command that was like, invoke a new Claude Code instance to go work on this bug. So you could say like docket work ID 5, and it'll spin up a Claude Code instance and feed it with a prompt and also the context from that bug and let it go work on that.
Hello again, viewer/listener. Did any of those clips pique your interest? Maybe something you want to listen to? As I said before, you can just head on over to the extended feed where you can find this episode and start right where you left off and listen to all of that glorious extended content. But for now, let's get back into the show.
We have like 5 massive data center projects queued up down here in Louisiana. We'll be able to run Gastown, one Gastown in each one next year.
It's called Gastown because it takes your entire town's worth of resources to run.
Yeah. I'm still just like, why do we keep building data centers in places where it's hot? Like, I brought this up a few episodes ago, but
I don't want to get into it, but there's actual good reasons to build things in places that it's not immediately obvious why, because there's like, for example, like the speed of light is a problem. Like you can't just build data centers where it's convenient to cool things because those places are too far away from the places that need the data. And so like, you know, it's like more complicated than that.
Yeah.
But, you know, I did used to work for a company that's selling hyperscaler compute. So like I find the data center's bad argument, is a little more complex for me personally.
Yeah.
It reminds me of when this was probably 7-8 years ago now. I was at a fintech startup, and the hedge fund that we were working with would talk about how there are actual loops of fiber optic cable in the connectors coming off the Atlantic Ocean in Manhattan because people yell because the speed of light is unfair.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That machine gets notifications 3 nanoseconds faster than mine does. That's not fair.
I mean, it does provide an advantage if you can. Like, nanoseconds do matter.
But it's a similar but inverse
trading.
kind of thing. Is like, why are there data centers in Lower Manhattan? That's a terrible use of the space of Lower Manhattan. But it's also not, because you just literally need to be actually physically there because there's physical constraints to computing that it's easy to not remember. So,
I mean, yes,
this also doesn't mean every data center is good. Like, for example, like Memphis, like Elon should go to prison for a lot of reasons, but like the Memphis XAI data center is bad, and it is poisoning a community, and all that stuff is horrible. But that doesn't mean that every single data center is equally as bad or is poisoning the things around it. There's totally different degrees of like, this is totally fine to like, this is clearly bad. And there's just a lot of black and white thinking about like, because there's one bad data center in Memphis, we should like return to pre-internet times because like, you just like, I don't know.
No, I do think that like we should have more data centers in colder places. I think there are certain types and shapes of workloads that would be better served by that. So I'm like, we're building a lot of data centers in a lot of hot places, or a lot of places that have water problems. And or we should just innovate some and come up with some better ways of cooling that don't like suck up all the water in water constrained places. Or, I think that's really the main problem, is like the water problem, because the electricity problem is like, I don't know, put a little nuclear power plant on the, like within the data center, and then there you go. Like
the water thing though is like, I think it's totally opposite actually. Like the water thing, like using Claude Code all day to do your job is like running your dishwasher once. Do you think that running your dishwasher once is a horrible waste of water? Like,
no, it's the opposite. It's a good use of water.
Yeah, exactly. So like that's like the thing is like on a personal level, like when you're talking about this kind of usage, like even the like a normal person talking to ChatGPT for a while uses basically like no water, but even like Claude, I got my 10 Claude instances turning all day, like, or maybe 1 or 2. It's like roughly equivalent to running your dishwasher. So like it's just, that's not that much water actually. And like, yes, there are places in which this is a problem, and like those places should be like fixed, but just like, again, it's like very specific and narrow instances where there are problems that need to be solved. It's not like every single data center is suddenly using so much water that everyone is drowning. Like the data center thing bugs me because I feel like people are latching on to bad arguments because it's convenient, not because it's real. Like, no one was complaining about data centers 5 years ago. We had a lot of data centers. We were building a lot more data centers 5 years ago. All these problems were still present then. It's like, just because we're building a couple more and because people are angry about AI, they want to complain about data centers as though their entire life didn't resolve around the compute that happens in data centers. But like, and has always done that for like a while now, basically.
But like, I feel like a data center where you're averaging the load of like GPUs throw out way more heat than CPUs do. Right, like as a thing. So if you're pegging a bunch of GPUs, that's going to create more heat, which is going to make it mean you're going to need to cool more. And our data centers now have been shifting away from lots and lots of compute and spinning disks and SSDs to like tons of GPUs. And even if it's just like per GPU, like a 200 or 300 watt difference, like that adds up when you're packing like a dozen of them into a rack, or a dozen of them into like a rack unit, right? So it's like, I think there probably is like a pretty significant difference in like the heat output and what needs to be cooled at the end of the day, and that has a direct effect on like how much water you're going to use.
But if you look at like electricity usage generally, like data centers are not like half of the electricity usage of stuff. Like if we're talking about like conservation in the environment and like making sure that we can handle all this stuff, like this is just like not the highest priority thing to do. And like we need to have more clean energy just like in general, because the idea of telling people that they need to use less electricity just like isn't going to fly. Like people are going to just keep using more electricity. And so like like basically just like I don't disagree that there is like an increase in consumption here, but I just think that like taking a more holistic view of energy consumption, it's just like not that much in the grand scheme of things, and there's like much bigger fish to fry, and that's like more important than trying to yell at individuals that they're, you know, using marginally more electricity. Like,
but this is also why, I don't know, local AI, I feel like this is a thing that we should all be hopping on. Because I think that feels like one of the things that something like Gastown will help enable more, is using local AI. Because the problem with local AI, right, is that it's slow, right? Like your graphics card, even if you have like a good graphics card set up, it's not going to be able to compete with like the gigantic, you know, multi-trillion parameter models that are like the hyperscaler ones. But like, maybe you don't need that if you can say do more iterations, or you can like do most of the work locally and then ship it off to one of the bigger like API models to get some final overview or something. But like doing it interactively is like a painful type of way to work with local models. And so I think if we have things that can kind of run themselves, and you can dispatch tasks to them that it comes back later, like the Claude Code loop sort of gives you already, then that makes it even easier for you to do more local stuff. And hey, like if you buy like a modern Mac and you get like a whole bunch of RAM in it, you can run some pretty big models for not that much money and not that much power.
Yeah, it's complicated because talking about the industry being cyclical, like this local versus remote models thing, it's just client server all over again. Do we have the big servers all in one place where we get to take advantage of scale and then amortize that over all of the users? Or do we run it locally where if you had the exact same load for the same number of users, it would actually be worse because you don't have the efficiencies of doing it all in one place? But then there's also the transfer cost between, like it's just like all trade-offs. And there's other things about local models that are good and interesting and useful too. But if we're like, since we just got off the power discussion, for example, like I'm not actually sure that everyone buying a $10,000 Mac Pro and running it individually and having the models run locally is actually better for the environment than having a data center where we can amortize load across, you know, all of these things. Like for example,
if every person had a megawatt power supply running their own rendering cluster in their house, in every house around, that would probably consume more net power.
Yeah. In these instances, local models tend to be smaller and they're using less power overall, and so there's like a billion different bits of trade-off here. But I'm just saying, like, there's a lot of different trade-offs in all of these things.
I mean, I feel like if the efficiency of data center GPUs, or even just regular GPUs, were anywhere near the efficiency of Mac Studios, I think I would agree with that argument. But it's like, it changed the argument to be like a whole bunch of people running 5090s or like RTX 6000 Pros, right? I think that, because those things, you know, 600 watts for just a graphics card, and then you have all the other stuff you need. But like a Mac Pro running, or a Mac Studio running at full tilt is just like 300, 400 watts. Like the efficiency of those chips is insane. So it might actually be a reasonable trade-off. But I assume that perhaps in the future, that type of efficiency will migrate to the data center. So in the long run, like, is it a better?
It all bounces back and forth, and like, you know. So I'm assuming that both ends of these spectrums will be better at different points in time going into the future, right? Just because that's like the way that it works.
Yeah, I think right now though, it's just like it's running local AI is pretty hard to do compared to, you know, and just open Claude Code and it goes. And like local AI, you gotta set something up. But it's like, even for me, like I have two 3090s that are NV linked together, and like getting that set up was just like a big pain because there's like so many things. And I'd like rather use my Mac, but like, or like maybe even like an AMD graphics card because those are cheaper. But like the ecosystem cannot support those things yet. But it's like if more people want to do more local stuff, then more efforts put into making that stuff work better. And I think like ideas like Gastown make it more palatable to people to use local things, because if you're just running your GPU at full tilt for 24 hours, your power bill is going to suck, but that's a lot cheaper
than 10 Claude accounts.
Exactly. Yeah. It's like even me over here using a megawatt of power a month is still like, you know, a few $100. It's not like, you know, $5,000. So I think there's good arguments to be made about how this will help us shift, and then inevitably it'll shift back because, like, I don't know, venture capital money will make it so they can just undercut and start cutting prices and make it more, make it more cost effective for you.
What if, hear me out, we rented you your compute again?
No, Claude Code. I mean, we talk about Claude Code or Claude in general for a minute, because like that 2x that we all had at the end of last year was like really nice. But I also saw that you had like some limit issues earlier this year. Have those been resolved?
Sort of yes and sort of no. I have had less. So there's kind of two separate things. One of which is I was using I in November I left Oxide and I went to a startup, and so a lot of stuff has been changing in my life. But like I was using my Claude Code Max account like at Oxide, and I was never running into limits, even though I was like running 3 parallel agents 8 hours a day for the full week, and that was like not a problem. 3 parallel agents is about where I personally top out at giving them more work to do. And this is also why I saw Gastown as being inevitable, because I was like, I am just personally like code reviewing the output of 3 Claudes all day long, and that's like where I end up. But if you go to the next step, which is like Claude reviews its own code, I can absolutely see how that scales up way past 3. But I wasn't hitting limits then. And then over Christmas break, I was working on a project for a while, and I definitely was like really pushing it. I shipped 100 commits on Christmas Day while hanging out with the family, actually. Like, and is that good or bad? I don't know, but it was what happened. And so like I wasn't running into those limits, but that was during that time period where they were giving the 2x. And then after the first, like I still had a little bit of time off before I returned to work, and so I started hitting like session limits. And so that's resolved itself because new job is also like willing to pay for a Claude account, and so now I have like kept my personal one and also have my work one, and so I haven't been able to like top out on both of them. And I haven't been like 24/7 coding a personal project after work for the last couple weeks, and so I haven't run into the limits, but also been doing a lot less work than I was in the first week of the year, 2 weeks of the year. And so I think it's a little more natural that I've not run into those limits, but yeah.
Okay.
So
it was like,
I feel like they messed up the rolling back the bonus, basically, because I was like, I didn't hit limits before. I'm doing the same thing I always was, and now I'm hitting limits all of a sudden. Wonder what's up with that. And since they just increased it, it wouldn't have shocked me if when they decreased it, that was a thing. But yeah.
Right. Yeah, that's one of the other reasons why I was like, I would like a local development, not only local, but like to have most of my stuff be local, because then it's not immune, but it's like there's less of a chance of like a mess up with something like this, like being like, oh, this just like ruined a couple days for me.
Yeah. And I mean, like there's a lot of things to say about the limits and it pausing. Like I think that there's some amount of like stopping is a little good for you maybe. And so like from January 1st to January 5th, I ran through my first week of the account, and I hit my weekly account limit, and so I couldn't do anything from the 5th to the 7th. And that's like maybe a good idea to like chill out a little bit and like reflect and like think about things. But there's also definitely like, it is a not insignificant moment to be like, oh, I can't really keep doing what I've been doing unless I either wait or unless I fork over more money. And according to CC usage, like in that first week, I'd used the equivalent of $1,400 worth of tokens. So it's like, okay, divide that by 5. Let's say it's $1,500. And so that's $300. So do I want to spend $600 for that, the last 2 days of that week to like keep up this level of productivity? Like I cannot afford that,
Yeah.
So like, there's definitely like a, like, oh no, like what happens if and when this becomes actually expensive for realsies? And I mean, it's not like $200 a month is cheap exactly, but like getting $1,400 for $200 is cheap.
Right.
And actually it's more like for $50, because that was 1 week out of 4 for my month.
Right.
But like, yeah, there's definitely like a real rubber hits the road moment where you like realize that like this stuff can get very expensive. And so that is a thing that I see as like a limiting factor on a lot of this, is that like it does cost money to run these things. And so like, yeah, we could talk about scaling them up infinitely. And like, who really, like, Corey Quinn's made an entire career out of like being like, here's where you messed up your Amazon bill by paying too much money, right? Like there's like, like the idea that like we look at our cloud bills is like, yeah, I think that many people do, but also a lot of people do not, and they spend way much more money than they have to. And so I think that it will just be the same thing with this AI stuff. But like on a personal level, like for my side projects, I'm like, I'm willing to give Anthropic $200, but I am not willing to give them $2,000 because I just don't have $2,000 to give them. So like, you know, there's some challenges there.
Gastown has definitely again triggered a lot of, well, eventually it'll only be the rich people that can afford to do this discussions.
Yeah.
The pay-to-play world, like, oh, this is so much more efficient, but you can only do it if you're willing to give Anthropic $5,000 a month.
I feel like it's going to be a lot like how Uber and Lyft and like all the ride-sharing apps were like those good days of like the late 2010s where like, yeah, you could get super cheap ride shares. So like everybody was ride sharing everywhere. Everybody's like, yeah, I'll take an Uber pool, right? I mean, it's going to cost me like $2 to get where I'm going, or like $4 and add a little tip. And like, great, I got to where I'm going for $10. And now it's like, you want to get in a car, it's like $10. Like, especially like, you know, in Manhattan, it's like, you want to go to another borough? Okay, that's going to be like $30-$40 right there. Whereas before, you could have gotten to another borough for like $10. So it's like, yeah, there was this like giant shift all of a sudden when it's like, oh no, we've been subsidizing this for so long. Now we actually have to like start making money off of this stuff. And those economics from all of, like, they change from all the VC money to now having to actually run a sustainable business.
I think my worst ride was from O'Hare to downtown in Chicago for GopherCon at about 10 o'clock at night, and it was $115.
Yeah.
I remember reading about somebody who took an Uber from LA to San Francisco at one point.
Just go buy a car at that point.
That would be so expensive now.
Yeah.
Like that, just like, I don't know, buy a first class plane ticket instead, because like then again, then you have to deal with LAX, and I don't know if you want to deal with LAX.
Yeah.
So like, trade-offs.
I've been through LAX once. Yeah, don't want to do it again.
It used to be my home airport at a time when I was traveling 2 to 3 times a month. So
terribly designed airports, and I live in the land of terribly designed airports, so it's
that smaller model from 18 months ago is perfectly sufficient for what you need to do. Yeah. And you don't need to go hit a giant data center to go do your compute.
Manage your context windows. Yeah.
The same, kind of similar to what we've seen with cell phone over the last few years. I mean, there was a period there in the 2000s where everyone was getting a new phone every year. And just every company was rapidly iterating on new features on the phones. And now I have a Pixel 9 that's 3 years old now. And I have no need to get a new one unless this one breaks. The one before that, I got this one because I dropped the one before that and it got run over. It was non-functional, so I had to get a new phone. Kind of, you don't need to be on the cutting edge. Eventually, the general public will just settle into using the last generation because it's good enough.
Well, see, so that's the thing. Apple does offer, like, essentially pay us $100 a month and you just get a new phone every year as like an option, and people do take it. So like I'm the same as you. I like have slowed down over time. I used to get new phones constantly, and now I get a new phone every couple years. But there is a very interesting, like, I've seen some people describe it as just like a budgeting thing of like, I just know that I used to pay $50 a month for my cell phone service. Now I spend $150 a month for my cell phone as a thing. And I just don't think about it at all anymore. And I just get the new phone, and then it's just like all good. And like for some people that sort of budgeting works out, you know, better, and we all choose how to spend our money and stuff. But I don't think it's like important enough to me personally to get a new phone every year. So I don't do that. But like, there are some people who choose both paths. And like you can only do that once an ecosystem is mature enough. basically, I think is kind of the point. Like there will be some people for whom staying on the bleeding edge makes total sense and investing more of their resources into doing that makes sense. And there'll be other people who do not need to be doing that. And it will just end up being like chill. So yeah.
Yeah. Like I still use my M1 Max. I'm using it right now, my M1 Max MacBook Pro. And it's like, yeah, this thing it's old now. It's getting up there, but it's still like works great. Super powerful. Like has 64 gigs of unified RAM.
And it's crazy. Like over Christmas when I was working on those projects, I had a test program accidentally like not get killed. And I had another time when I was starting up and I had a second test program not get killed. And all of a sudden the fans turned on and it was clear that my laptop was like working in a way that it had not ever since I bought it. I was like, oh no, something's going wrong. And I forgot how to use activity monitor properly. And so I was just lazy. And I asked Claude, like, hey, Claude, my fans are running. Like, what's the deal? And Claude goes, oh, you've had a process running at 100% CPU usage for 5 days now. That's probably a runaway task. Do you want me to kill it? And the only reason you noticed is because a second task was running at 100% CPU finally. And so but I was just like, I've never had a computer where I had one process peg an entire CPU core and it just did not affect the perceived speed of the rest of the machine. Like I had no idea that like a whole core was being used. So computers are crazy.
Even 2 years ago, or I guess going on 3 years ago now, I had an Intel Mac and the fans ran constantly.
You open that thing and the fans turn on.
Switched to upgraded to an M1 and it was like, wait, it's quiet. Where's all the white noise from the fan running all the time?
My girlfriend still uses an Intel Mac and she's been thinking about upgrading. And she's like, can you explain to me like what the difference is between like that Mac and this one? And I was like, it is so hard for me to like figure out how to explain this because like it's just it's like a totally different computer basically. Like I don't know.
When you open the lid, it turns on immediately. That's
yeah. Well, her thing is she's one of the only people that liked the actual touch bar with the like little screen on it. So she has one of those ones, and so she's gonna be sad to give that up because it works really well for her, and that's like cool. And they're like, I'm sorry, just like it turns out that's apparently a unique opinion. Like I never owned one of those, so I don't have a personal opinion about it. But I do just remember they like took it away right away because people were being
one, and it was okay. It was very futzy, and you had to go put effort into customizing it because you got different buttons for every application that you had open, and like it was the level of effort to get use out of it was more than the value that I got out of it. Like it stayed on default settings, and I used the volume slider.
If they had put it above the function realm instead of getting rid of it, like when they brought the escape key back, that was great. Interestingly, I think not for Vim users because none of us actually use the escape key because like, why do you want to reach your pinky up that high? We'll have some other thing that we do. But, You're crazy. You're crazy. I have JK mapped to escape. Like I'm not reaching my pinky up there.
Pinky. I move my entire left hand and use my pointer finger to hit escape.
Okay, old man. But if they had put the touch bar like above a set of function keys and escape key, I think it would have done a lot better. The fact they tried to replace the function key and escape key with the touch bar was just like, no. Like we actually need those keys sometimes though.
Yeah, so, and there's an aspect of losing the actual tactile feel of the keys themselves, and now you had to move your eyes and look to see which function key you were hitting and which mode it was in. So there was it became a subconscious effort to use it.
But anyway, it's like part of this whole upgrade treadmill, do you stay current kind of question too, is like, it is unfortunate sometimes when users prefer the way that things used to happen. And then like, you just literally cannot buy that computer anymore. Like you get one off eBay, but they're all going to be kind of old and a little crappy. And so just like, it's unfortunate for her that a feature of a computer that she likes is just like not possible to have anymore because that's just like the way things change. And that's just a fact of life, but it's just like, it is part of the, like when thinking about the upgrade treadmill, as we're talking about, you get the new one all the time. You do run the risk of the underlying platform being like, sorry, we just don't offer that anymore. So, oh well, and so that's definitely like a tricky part of keeping current.
I mean, I think the same sort of thing happened with like the reason I had to buy 3090s instead of like 4090s or 5090s is because like they got rid of the NVLink, bridge, or the NVLink like part of the card, or the SLI part of the card. So you can't actually put two cards together and have it be sort of like one card anymore, with all the consumer cards. So it's like, oh yeah, I have to use an older like model of card in order to get what I want. Or like, I could buy an RTX 6000 Pro, but those are 10 grand each. They do have 96 gigs of RAM, so it'd be nice to have like 192 gigs of like unified memory. But like, I could also just buy two Mac Pros with 512 gigs of RAM for that much money. So like, the price. Apple really did go from like the company everybody was like, are you just going to stop making Macs because you're real bad at it right now, to wow, Macs are better than literally everything else on the market, like in the span of 3 years, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah, but that's when they put all of their engineering effort into new iPhones every year.
I don't necessarily think that's like, they clearly were working on Apple Silicon like the entire time. I just think it wasn't ready yet and figuring out how to because there's a lot that went into getting off of Intel. Like I think they probably decided to get off Intel like in the early 2010s, but it's like you have to make Rosetta 2, you have to like actually figure out how to do the silicon right, and you have to, there's like a whole bunch of stuff they had to do that takes like a decade to do well. So I think they were just kind of stuck with Intel for those years when Intel was not doing good work across the board. And now I think they're doing a little bit better, but that's because they got beat so bad on multiple fronts.
Oh, look, I glance over at my Slack and GitHub is having an outage again.
It's like a Thursday, dude. Like, what do you mean? Of course GitHub's having an outage. Like, but no, I think, I am hopeful for the future with a lot of this stuff. I think, Gastown is a really interesting idea. I think we just have to like figure out how to refine it.
Had a fun adventure last week where I had Claude chasing down an edge case. Why are we hitting this? What's going on here? And it's a bunch of concurrent things and context cancellations and all kinds of fun crap. And eventually Claude comes back and says, well, what if they deleted all the records from the database? That would explain this. It's like, yes, but that's not what happened.
Oh God, it did. I was running Claude when I was trying to debug a problem with a transcription API, and I was like, okay, I've done lots of debugging. I know that this is on their side, not my side. And it's like, well, actually, I found this file that has this name that seems like this might be a part. Is there a part of your project that has? I'm like, I had to tell it like 7 times. I'm like, it's not problem with my side. It is on their side. Please help me finish debugging this. Sometimes it just gets a little too clever with itself. And I'm like, bro, what are you doing? But also, I will say, like, it's funny that you mentioned the whole, like, oh, I opened Claude and had it diagnose my computer. Because I did that the other day, too. Because, like, I had both my efficiency cores, like, pinned at 100%. I was like, what is going on? And I started like, oh, here's processes. I should do my old debugging process of like going to Google and being like, why is this stuck? Blah, 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 blah. And then I'm like, wait a minute. I just opened up Claude. I was like, computer not working. Please tell me why. I did a whole bunch of like diagnosing and it was like, oh, it's because these processes are running and blah, 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 blah. I was like, oh, I did just do an update. It's like, oh yeah, that's probably it. And it'll come down in like a few hours. It's just doing some indexing and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, oh, okay, that's so much more helpful than me Googling
the brave new world of Star Trek. Computers, please figure out what's wrong.
Yeah, but like it's like funny, but it's also very real in that, like, adopting Linux sucks because like if you use Linux as your OS, something breaks and you got to go run some command you've never heard of, and you're like Googling forums and just like adding PPAs and praying to God that your system works again. And like Claude is a better Linux administrator than I am because like yes. I have forgotten all that stuff. And so it unironically drops my like I may run Linux on my computer again someday. And if I do, it'll partially be because I know Claude can fix stuff for me that's like always been annoying and has stopped like my computer from working. And like I need my computer to work. I need it to not break. And it's better at it than I am, which is maybe more about me, but also like, I don't know, like I think you can adopt tools that are a little more complicated for you with the sort of help of these kind of things. So
I think that in a way, like this AI stuff, I feel like a year ago, like, this AI stuff is awful and terrible and annoying, but I feel like in a way, it's actually doing what technology was like meant to do in a way, which is like kind of fade into the background in a way where it's like, all of these annoying things I didn't want to do. Like, there's tons of little tools that I want to have that I'm like, I just don't want to spend 2 days writing this, or I don't want to spend 8 hours writing this. And it's like, oh, I can just have Claude write that for me in 20 minutes. And then I don't care about the quality of the code. I don't care if it has rough edges. Like, it does the thing for me, and now I can move on with my life, and now I don't have to think about this thing ever again. And it's like, it's really just cleaning up all of the mess that we all had to deal with in the past. It's just like, oh yeah, I don't have to spend like an hour Googling around to try and figure out why my computer is broken. I can do things that are much simpler in general. So
yeah, like I had a friend who talked to somebody who was associated with the Software Freedom Conservancy, I think it was, or maybe it was the SFF directly. And a lot of people are very upset in the GPL space about training and stuff like that, and like license washing and all these concerns. And so he'd expect this person to be really negative about AI, and this person was actually particularly pretty positive, because he was like, "Listen, the whole goal of the Free Software Foundation is to get people to be able to control their computers and take ownership back over their own computers." And in the 80s, that meant access to the source code. But like, if Claude means that a person who's not a programmer is able to customize their computer and use it in a way that works better for them because it gives them access to school tools and skills they didn't have before, then like that is actually fulfilling the goal, like stated mission of the organization. And like, that's really the actual thing, basically. And I always thought that was very interesting in terms of perspective, right? It's like, there's a weird thing where it's like, on one hand, you're like, do I want to hand Linux administration tooling to somebody who doesn't know what they're doing? Like, maybe not, but also that's really paternalistic. Like, normal people can figure out how to use their computers, and sometimes AI is good for helping them do so, and we'll see how it goes.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a good place to wrap up this episode of Fall Through. Thank you, Dylan, Steve, for joining for this wonderful discussion of Gastown AI and a whole bunch of other tangentially related things. And thank you, viewer/listener, for joining us for this episode. What'd you think about that? Do you agree with us? Do you not agree? Do you have some nuance to add? Do you think we're crazy? Let us know in the comments, social media, Changelog Zulip, Go for Slack, or wherever you might find your lovely Fall Through hosts. This episode of Fall Through was hosted by Kris Brando with co-host Steve Klabnik and Dylan Burke. Fall Through is... Oh, I have to change this now. Oh, no. Fall Through is produced by Kris Brando, and our beats are by Breakmaster Cylinder. And done. Guess we're not going to have a little banter in the beginning. We always have a little banter, but it's okay. We don't need to have banter. We had banter before we hit record.
How can it be called global warming if it's 30 degrees in Texas? Tell me that.